Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel where I go over the classic jazz albums, try to give you some insight and some explanation, the history, so that when you sit down and attentively listen to it, you'll have a little bit of background, you'll know what to listen for, you'll have a more informed listening experience, I hope. My name is Christopher Schaub, and today we are going to be covering Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers' Moanin, recorded in 1958 for Blue Note, released in '59, I think. In the description, I'll have links to buy this album. This is part of the Blue Note. They call it the Classic Vinyl Series. It's remastered by Kevin Gray at Coherent Audio and pressed on 180 gram vinyl. If you're into vinyl records, these are great. They sound great. They're from the original master tapes, and they really give you a modern quality experience in many cases of great classic recordings. So I highly encourage you to buy this from Blue Note. You can also follow the links from SongWhip in the description, and then you can stream this album at your leisure on Spotify or iTunes, Apple Music, whatever you use. And the notes from this video will be in the description as well. So hopefully you can follow the notes and sit down, find a nice quiet place, put this record on, maybe put it on where you're not too distracted, and try to just attentively listen to it. I've given you some notes, and I hope it helps. So this is hard bop is the style of this record. It's an era right after bebop. It's a response to bebop and maybe cool jazz. It's hard driving music. It's still jazz, it's still swinging, but instead of the frenetic pace of like bebop, it's more like soul, hard drivings, a lot of blues and gospel in the style. And Art Blakey, if I had to describe hard bop to somebody, I would say Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. And Art Blakey is probably one of the most hard driving, and I don't mean that in a bad way, I mean he just has a great strong groove, and he really is powerful. And when you listen to this record, you'll hear how intense his playing is, how straightforward it is in a lot of cases, but it's deceptively simple. He does a lot of little things behind the scenes that if you really listen, you can hear him doing, and I'll talk about those things. But he's just strong, and a lot of the things he does on the drums, on the tom-toms, on the snare drum, and on the cymbals are really characteristic. When you hear Art Blakey as a drummer, and I'm a drummer, when I hear Art Blakey, it's like, oh yeah, that sounds like Art Blakey. I mean, he just has his own sound. This is a Philadelphia-based band for the most part. I think everybody's from Philly. Art Blakey's from Philadelphia. A lot of great drummers out of Philadelphia. Philly Joe Jones, another favorite. So this is Art Blakey on drums, Lee Morgan on trumpet, a young Lee Morgan on trumpet, Benny Golson on tenor saxophone. You have Bobby Timmons on piano, and Jymie Merritt on bass. Blakey has this thing that he did over his entire career where he would bring along younger musicians, and he would form bands with younger musicians, and those younger musicians would then go on to play with and have great careers after him. So he was kind of almost like a school. You go through the Blakey school and you come out a mature musician ready to go on and do something great. Greats that have come through the Blakey school are people like Wynton Marsalis, for example. You've got Lee Morgan in this band. One of my drum teachers at Berkeley, John Ramsey, played in Blakey's band and was also involved in coordinating his touring and the events of the group. And he also wrote a book that if you're a drummer you should get, that breaks down Blakey's styles and how he plays various rhythms, especially a lot of his shuffles are really kind of iconic, and you'll hear them on this record quite a bit. So I was very fortunate to study with John. Much respect for Art Blakey all around. So the tracks. Moanin is written by Bobby Timmons, 1958 AABA tune, 8-bar sections across the board. Hard bop style again. It's a very catchy melody. Da, 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 ba, da. You'll hear that melody will just stick in your head all day if you once you get it. And so try to really internalize this melody, because it's an easy one to catch. It's an easy one to internalize and then have in your head while you're listening to the solos. And you'll notice the drums and the other instruments catching the melody quite a bit throughout the solos. There's alternating 2 and 4 feels, which I talked about in the previous video, in the bass. So notice where the bass goes into like a 2 feel, like doom, 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 right? Doom, and then doom, 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 or it goes back into a 4 feel. Sort of keep an ear out for that. Blakey's ride cymbal is just real smooth and consistent. Blakey's one of those guys who can play intensely and quietly. You feel the intensity of his ride cymbal, but also how clear it is and how it just provides the ultimate cushion for the instrument, for the other instruments to solo over. Also notice the Blakey backbeats where he's playing a lot of 2 and 4, like, you know, just a da da ga da da ga da da ga da. But what he's doing in a lot of cases, it's not just straight like rock and roll type backbeats. It's kind of like a shuffle style where he has sort of a grace note before the louder note on 2 and 4. So it's kind of like da 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 da. You hear that little quiet note on the snare drum. You can hear him doing this, and he does this through a lot of his shuffle rhythms, and it gives it a certain lilt. If I had to pick one beat that I would say is iconic Art Blakey, it's that Blakey shuffle. But you can hear him doing it, and a lot of drummers won't do that like he does here. And I think it's, Blakey had a long history of playing in dance bands and came up in that era. And he brings a lot of that into this era because it's hard bop. He's trying to do more driving sound. And so, I think a lot of jazz drummers might be like, oh, listen to that. He's playing backbeats. It's like, well, yeah, because it's kind of got that blues influence to it. Notice the press roll. So on the snare drum, right after the head is done playing, before it goes into the solo. So the first time through the chorus is the head. The chorus is one time through the tune. But the first time through, right when they're done playing, there's a drop in the sound, and then Blakey brings us into the solos with this crescendo, this increasing of volume press roll. A press roll is where you basically buzz the drumsticks into the snare drum or into the drum head in an alternating fashion, and it's not a measured roll with like equal beats per hand. You're pressing into the drum, and it's got this like effect. It doesn't sound right. But and Blakey's press roll is legendary, and he does it all through this album to do that kind of effect, to sort of signal a new section or to cue the band, okay, it's time to solo, but to cue your ear that something's coming. So it's a real big feature. Again, a lot of guys don't do it like Blakey's. Blakey's is powerful. Are You Real, written by Benny Golson, is the next track, 1958. It's in a repeated A form, 16 bars, so it's a 32-bar chorus. Up-tempo, or more up-tempo than the first tune. Moanin's kind of a nice, lilty, da-da-da-da. And then Are You Real, da-da-da. It comes in and gives you a nice up-tempo contrast from where Moanin is at. It showcases Golson as a writer. And notice before the final chorus, the band trades 4s and 8s. And what does that mean? So when a band trades 4s, it means that they are taking solos. So the band's still playing, and then they'll drop out, and like say the drummer will take 4 bars of solo, and then the band will come back in, and then sometimes another person will take 4 bars and the band will come back in. So they're trading 4-bar phrases, 4 measures of solo. And then Art Blakey, I think, takes the last 8 himself, and then they go back into the final chorus. So they do trading 4s, then they let Blakey take an 8-bar solo, and then they go back in. So that's something that you'll hear if you go hear jazz live, you listen to records, you'll hear them trading 4s or trading 8s, or taking whole choruses of just solo. And it's a way for the musicians to kind of like call and response with each other. The next tune is Along Came Betty, and that's written by Benny Golson, 1958. It's a, hang on, I gotta get my notes together here. It's an ABC form, 16 bar A, and then a B section of 8 bars, and then a C section of 10 bars. It's written by Benny Golson. It's got some intricate harmony. The form is a little strange, being that it's 16, 8, and 10. People sometimes think of this one a little differently, but I clearly think it's ABC, 16, 8, and 10. Notice the unison in the horns right up at the top. This is Golson wrote this about his girlfriend in Ohio, right nearby. Here I'm in Michigan. His girlfriend Betty Pritchett, and it was trying to convey like her walk, how she was graceful, very feminine kind of a walk. So he's trying to capture the way she walked and the way she moved in the sort of the feel of the song. So see if you can kind of, does this song sound like a beautiful woman that a man is attracted to? Does it sound like how he would represent that and how he would convey that to other people? Let's see here. The next tune is, so that's the end of side A. Side B is, the next tune is the Drum Thunder Suite. So it's Art Blakey, he's the band leader, okay? It's his band, and he's the drummer, so yeah, he's gonna do a Drum Thunder Suite. And it's in 3 sections. It's written by Blakey and Golson. It's in 3 sections, 1958. The first section is called Drum Thunder, and it starts with, this back and forth between the horns and the drums. And you it's 3 sections. Drum Thunder, second section is Cry a Blue Tear, and the third section is Harlem's Disciples. And I can't possibly get into the details of this. It's an involved piece. But a few things to say. Each section explores different types of rhythms, different types of moods. You can really hear Blakey's intensity on the drums. I feel like the drums sound African to me, like that sort of really loud kind of pounding tom-tom kind of a sound. And then there's a call and response between the horns and the drums. That's again a very African style of composition. And then you have the blending of Western music and African music here in this Drum Thunder Suite, which is a really interesting mixture, juxtaposition. But jazz is that in general. But notice the tom-tom feature as well kind of is a little reminiscent of the Gene Krupa Sing, Sing, Sing beat. A lot of people have beats that are like that of that era, but that's the most famous one that's out there. You'll hear on the tom-tom, he's doing da, 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 kind of a beat. And let's see here. Yeah, so just notice the call and response. Notice how Blakey's hi-hat on 2 and 4, that's the cymbal that goes up and down that you play with your foot. It's real strong, it's real clear, and he keeps it going throughout a huge chunk of the various sections. And I think it's one thing helping keep it not drag and keeping the musicians like, hey, we got to keep this going because there's so much call and response. It would be easy to lose the time. But it also it really helps the piece keep the momentum. And then also he plays on the rim of the drum quite a bit on the actual metal rims that hold the drum head onto the drum. He plays swing time on those in a few sections, which is sort of an older style. A lot of, ragtime musicians and musicians of the early jazz period played on various pieces of wood and parts of the drum head and parts of the drum rim, because cymbals really weren't as developed, and then moving the time from the rim to the cymbals, or moving the time from the snare drum to the cymbals was the thing that evolved. So, but Blakey, you can hear him doing that, where he's kind of harkening back to an earlier style a bit, which is pretty fascinating, and again, a nice texture. So then the second tune on side B is Blues March, written by Benny Golson, 1958. It's a 12-bar blues form. It's got an opening drum feature that sounds like if you ever go see a marching band at a parade, when they first line up, the drum section will usually do like some kind of to kick off the band. So there's like an opening drum feature that Blakey does, a solo, and then it kicks off the band as if they're going to go marching. So it's a blues march. Notice the shuffle pattern Blakey plays here. You can really hear him. You can hear him playing, interestingly, the shuffle on all 4 beats. He's really emphasizing quarter notes. Dun, 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 dun. Because it's harkening back again to that earlier New Orleans kind of a style. It reminds me a lot of like Louis Armstrong kind of recordings. Blakey's playing sort of in that style quite a bit. here, but with his own sort of modern twist, hard bop kind of twist, his own signature on it. And you can really hear him, doing that grace note on the beats. So he's not just playing boom, 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 boom. He plays da 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 da. It's real quiet, that little grace note before the beat, but you can hear him do it if you have good headphones, and it helps it swing and not just feel like plodding along, which is. And he's really known for that type of a thing. And also notice here again in Blues March, there's a lot of press rolls that really, move us into the next section. You're finishing a section, moving into another section, or highlighting a particular phrase. And then all the tunes so far on the record are original tunes written mostly by Golson and Timmons. This one, the last one on the record, Come Rain, Come Shine, was written by Harold Arlen and Johnny Mercer in 1946. It's an A-B form, 16 bar A, 16 bar B, for a 32 bar tune. It was in the Broadway musical, which one was it in? St. Louis Woman. It's considered a classic jazz standard. It's the only non-original tune on the album. Notice the stop time at the head. So stop time is where you have a melody, and the band, instead of just playing a groove behind the melody, they'll stop. Dun, 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 dun. They'll stop and accent certain parts of the melody, and they do this to let everybody know, okay, it's the beginning of the tune, and it sort of sets it off then from the solos where they're just playing groove, and then soloists are playing over it. So notice the stop time at the head, and at the end of the A section, there's this really interesting deceptive melody, deceptive phrase in the melody that comes in like a beat early and makes you think it's going to end sooner than it does, and then it ends. So listen for that. Notice at the end of the A section, if you're playing along and you're counting the bars, 16 bars, you might say, wait, it's cool. It's not wrong. It's a cool sort of deceptive thing that they do that I think is a really nice feature and a cool compositional tool. So Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Moanin, 1958-59. Get this. This is just great. And if you're going to listen to jazz, this is one you need to spend some time with. It is just fantastic. Hope you have a great day.